call the February 15th, 2022 Finance Committee meeting to order at 6:45. The chair would entertain a motion for the approval of the claims.
Madam Chair, I move that we pay the claims in the amount of $504,676.25, manual checks in the amount of $158.22, payroll and liabilities for 1/28/22 in the amount of $485,731.59, for a grand total of $990,566.06.
I second.
All right, Councilmember Pronto made the motion, second by Councilman Bailey. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion passes. Is there anything additional to discuss?
I have nothing, Your Honor.
I have nothing, Your Honor.
Okay, with nothing, we'll adjourn at 6:45. 6.
I now call the February 15th, 2022 regular meeting of the Riverton City Council to order at 7 p.m. Councilman Bailey will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and Councilman Larson will give us the invocation.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our eternal Heavenly Father, we are thankful for the opportunity to serve and be part of the Riverton City Council. Father, we would ask that Thou would watch over and bless us, that we might do and say those things which would help the citizens at the utmost. Father, we would ask that You would watch over the first responders, especially our police, that they might be taken care of and watched over. We're thankful for the military that protects us and for this safety of this land. We say this humbly in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks, Mike and Kyle. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Would the city clerk please conduct roll call?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilman Lindsay Cox.
Here.
Councilman Mike Bailey.
Here.
Councilman Dean Peranto.
Here.
Councilman Kyle Larson.
Here.
Councilwoman Carla Borders.
Here.
Councilwoman Christy Salisbury.
Here.
Mayor Richard Gard.
Here. I declare we have a quorum present. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Councilwoman Cox has the motion. Councilman Toronto has the second. Any council discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Communication from the floor. Anyone in the audience that wishes to address the council regarding an item that is that is scheduled for a public hearing will be given the opportunity to speak during that public hearing. Anyone wishing to address the council on another item may speak now. I would ask those individuals who wish to speak to address the council at this time, would they approach the podium and identify themselves for the record? Seeing none, we'll proceed. Would the city clerk please read the consent agenda items by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Approval of the minutes, February 1st, 2022, regular council meeting. Approval of the minutes, February 15th, 2022, Finance Committee meeting. Approval of the Finance Committee recommendations for February 15th, 2022. Approval of the municipal court report for the month of January 2022. And approval of the replat at 3723 Tam O'Shanter, petitioners Michael and Pamela Hatfield.
Thank you. Are there any other items requiring further discussion?
Your Honor, the Finance Committee met earlier this evening and approved the consideration of claims to be paid in the amount of $504,676.25, manual checks in the amount of $158.22, payroll and liabilities for January 28th, 22 in the amount of $485,731.59, for a total of $990,566.06.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Toronto has the motion. Councilman Bailey has the second. Council discussion? Mike?
Your Honor, I'll abstain from the Bailey Enterprises line items on the Finance Committee report.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, I'll abstain from any WyoNet and traveling line items.
Okay. Ladies, you gonna abstain from anything? Here's not.
Nope.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Say nay. Motion passed. Police stats presentation. We're gonna, Captain, I was gonna make the chief introduce you. You're up.
Captain Wes Romero. Get it to work.
Thanks, Captain.
You. Yes, please. Looks like it's going to take it a minute. So I handed you guys the sheet just in case this wasn't up quick enough. This has gone back for the last 5 years. If you look at each column, it's going to be the highest 10 for each year. Each bar shows you the specific year. So it'll start out with 2017 and go up to 2021. It's also broke down to show you each individual bar if it doesn't quite hit the line for that call.
Those are easier to read than the pies. Good job.
A little bit. So I also looked into the effect of COVID in the jail. They showed that they kind of suspended their operations on March 14th of 2020. As you can see, yeah, it's not showing that great. Our arrests in 2020 were 1,900, or 1,918. In 2021, which would be after that kicked in, was 1,981. So we still show a slight increase on arrest, even though the calls have gone down. Our calls for service this time last year were 1,022, and currently to date, it's 941. So we're kind of still continually seeing a decrease in our calls for service as well.
Fabulous.
And there's pretty much it, unless you guys have any questions.
Talk to us about the intoxicated persons report so that we can understand that just a little bit better.
So that's the one you're going to see with the highest bars, pretty much right in the center. The light blue color, which is the highest, that'll be for 2017. And the numbers you can see down at the bottom of that page as well, 1,746. And you can see it just slowly decreases through the next 4 years to the current year of 745 arrests so far.
This is the one that caught my eye. It was really, I think, quite outstanding from over 1,800. Well, it's not quite 1,800, over 1,600, someplace around 17. Well, it's 1746. Somebody turned out the lights up here. I don't know who did that, but at 1746 in 17 has dropped to 745 in 2021. I have my ideas of why that happened. Do you have any suggestions?
I mean, there could be several
Okay.
reasons.
So give us all several.
Several are just our enforcement that we've
Chief
had.
said it was because he was the chief.
Of course, so yeah. And that's the same time I came in as a captain, so it had to go down.
That had to be it.
That's what I told him the other day as being the chief, because that's the same year I became the chief.
So,
A lot of it is the officers and their enforcement, especially hitting City Park like we did, especially with your guys' blessings, and try to keep them from being in there. Just finding more places to send them and take them. So it's kind of
help.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's an outstanding number. It's 1,000 off of what was 5 years ago. And so I really would like to commend the police force for that effort. That's a problem that's never going to go away. We're going to always have some of that. But it's nice to see that there's a reduction there. And I think that's important. All of these numbers seem to be really good. And you know, the reason I asked for this discussion was every once in a while I go into rooms and people want to say, oh, gee, we have a terrible crime problem. And I think nationwide we do have a great influx in crime. But I think from what these bars are showing us, that we really don't from year to year have that big of a problem, except in that intoxicated individual. And looks like we're doing a pretty good job of bringing that down.
It's definitely a work in progress.
The chief was telling us that we got another spike here lately in auto theft.
We've seen that, yeah, and that's not included in here. Like I said, this is the top 10 through the years. Once we took last year's top 10, that's what we just kind of based it off of and just followed it along with the previous 4. So that's why we see these numbers.
Okay.
But we are seeing a very big increase, especially when we had the COVID come around and the kids weren't in school as much. The younger kids, they were out and about, just causing all kinds of grief. So,
And so, Chief said we had some kids as young as 12 years old
yes,
boosting cars.
yes. We just arrested one yesterday, wasn't it? 13 years old.
13-year-old.
Yes.
And so, how do they reach the pedals? Are you guys sending out special?
They're probably not much different than me, so I think I can do it all right. Just push the seat up a little more.
Just slide that seat up, huh?
Yeah.
Capella with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
What happened to kids stealing bikes?
Well, are we losing any bikes?
Well,
Nobody's
we haven't
stealing
seen
bike?
very many bike thefts.
Too cold, probably.
Too much work. You gotta pedal those.
Wow.
So, I really do appreciate, and I think this has been a nationwide problem, and I do appreciate the Riverton Police Department, because I think these numbers, as we see them, are really in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
And I just commend the chief. I realize it is because he's the chief and he does his job well. And I think all the officers are doing the exact same thing, getting out there and doing their job. And I appreciate the stats that come through on the weekly report. And I do read those and watch them and see how well we're doing from spot to spot and what we did 2 weeks ago and what we're doing last week. So is there anything else that you'd like to tell us?
I've got nothing unless you guys do.
Your Honor, I will say that right now, I feel like we have probably one of the best police departments. So I've been here 21 years, and I would say that this group that we have right now is probably one of the best group of police officers that we've ever had.
I would have to agree, and I think that we're one officer down, is that correct? Chris?
Two right now.
Two officers down? And I think that in and of itself tells volumes, because most police departments are really struggling to keep staff. And so we appreciate the work that you guys do, and that I think that's truly reflects on the leadership. People like to work there. People want to stay. And so people go out and do their work. So thank you very much.
You're doing a great job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Appreciate the great work.
Thank you.
Citizen appointments and in the Planning Commission, City Administrator's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. As we've done in the last couple council meetings and even prior to that, we've had applications for our boards that, the different boards that we have. We did a major appointment right after the beginning of the year, and then there's been a couple more that have come in since then. We have also just received, in between the last meeting and this meeting, the application that you are considering today for a planning commission. Josephine Gilpatrick is asked to be appointed to the planning commission. There is a spot open. It would be an alternate position. That has come through. We're happy to have that volunteerism. It is it is mayor's appointment, and it is recommended for approval by staff for the approval of that position. And again, it would be an alternate. Ms. Gilpatrick is in the audience right now if you have any questions of her, and we'd happily answer any questions for you.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the mayoral appointments. for
So
the
moved.
Commission.
Second.
Councilman Larson has the motion and Councilman Bailey has the second. Any discussion?
Your Honor,
Yes.
I'd just like to say that when we find qualified people, we need to grab them. And she appears to be very qualified for what we need.
HR doesn't like us to grab them, but
Wow.
we really should.
Figuratively.
We really do appreciate people applying for our boards.
Excuse
We do have
me.
some other spots and places. And so if you have some time and you would like to get involved, I think the Rendezvous Committee still has a few spots that we could fill. Is there anybody else that I'm missing? 3 boards up to strength. Any airport board, all right.
Community engagement also, Your Honor, I think has a couple spots.
Okay, community engagement, I would recommend that to anyone, but you gotta have some tennis shoes to keep up. So that's a big group, and we need all the help we can get. Airport board, are we all right, Kyle?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, appreciate it. Josephine, thanks for your service, we appreciate that. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. A public hearing consideration of the 2022 and 2023 liquor license renewals City clerk / HR, don't grab anybody. Director's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mayor and council, before you tonight for your consideration are the annual liquor license renewals that have been submitted for the licensing term of April 1st, 2022 through March 31st, 2023. Annually, each liquor license holder is required to submit a renewal application to the licensing authority, which is the City of Riverton. This year, we received 32 renewal applications. Of those applications, 22 are retail liquor licenses, 2 are club liquor licenses, 7 are restaurant liquor licenses, and 1 is a bar and grill liquor license. And the 32 renewal applications are all 32 of the licenses that we currently have. The renewal fees for the license renewals have generated $39,500 in revenue to the city this year, in addition to any sales tax revenues that are generated throughout the operations of these licenses. City staff and the Wyoming Liquor Division have certified the applications as complete. All of the license holders are in good standing and have not had any violations during the past licensing year. The proper fees have been paid and proper notice to the public has been advertised. Based on this information, staff recommends approval of all 32 liquor license renewal applications. Thank you.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to open a public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Paranto has the motion and Councilman Bailey has the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passed. I now declare a public hearing open. The public hearing will be conducted in accordance with state law and other applicable laws. I would ask those individuals wishing to address the council to approach the podium. Identify yourself for the record. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak? Seeing none, I would suggest that we close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Bailey has a motion. Councilwoman Cox has the second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the 32 liquor license renewal applications that were submitted to the City of Riverton for the calendar years of 4/1/2022 through 3/31/2023 liquor license period.
So moved.
Second.
Councilwoman Cox has the motion. Councilman Bailey has the second. Any further discussion? That's a lot of money. Does the mayor get any of that money? That's more than my budget.
I know it.
Thank you, bar owners. We appreciate that money. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Public hearing and consideration of ordinance number 22-002, first reading for the 2021 ICC code adoption. Community Development Director's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. City Council. The state of Wyoming adopted 2021 International Building Code later last year on September 22nd was the final vote. The state's adoptions included 2021 International Building Code, 2021 International Fire Code, 2021 International Fuel and Gas Code, 2021 International Mechanical Code, and 2021 International Existing Building Code. The International Code Council releases new versions of the building code on a 3-year cycle, i.e. 2012, 15, 18, and now 2021. Wyoming Statute 35-9-121 allows municipalities such as Riverton with local enforcement authority 6 months to adopt the new building codes after the state does so every 3 years. The City of Riverton's recommending body for building codes is the Board of Appeals. The Board of Appeals is a 7-member board comprised of local builders and tradesmen. The 2021 building code was provided to the Board of Appeals members on January 15, 2022 for their review and comment. On February 8, 2022, the Board of Appeals members met and recommended council adoption of the 2021 codes with the same exemptions and omissions as the 2018 building codes with the following additions. Omission of section P2904 dwelling unit fire sprinkler systems was deleted in its entirety. Table 301.2 has been amended to reflect changes in the wind loading the city is in, as well as the seismic category the city is under as well. This ordinance amending Chapter 15, Building and Construction of the Riverton Municipal Code, will update our current code from the 2018 IBC to the 2021 IBC with the same amendments and exemptions as were in place in 2021. Alternatives. Today, we cannot adopt the ordinance recommendation. We can revise the ordinance we can revise the ordinance as presented, or we can vote it in as written. Beyond publication costs, which is not anymore, buying new books and manuals, the proposed ordinance will not impact the budget directly. And the city's recommendation, the Board of Appeals recommends the City Council adopt on first reading ordinance number 22-002, adopting the 2021 International Building Code.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Larson has the motion, and Councilwoman Borders has the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. I now declare a public hearing is open. The public hearing will be conducted in accordance with state statute and other applicable laws. I would ask those individuals wishing to address the council to approach the podium and identify yourself for the record. Seeing none in the audience wanting to speak, I would suggest that we close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Larson has the motion. Councilwoman Cox has the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. The chair would entertain a motion to adopt ordinance number 22-002 on first reading.
So moved.
Second.
So moved.
Councilman Peranto has the motion. Councilman Bailey has the second. You girls are going to have to get faster on the phone.
There's a delay, I think.
We'll try to wait for you. Appreciate you.
That's okay.
Any discussion on that motion?
Your Honor, are we working on anything on section 903.2.8? Group R is amended to read an automatic sprinkler system installed in accordance with section 903.2 shall be provided throughout all buildings in Group R. I wonder about, there's more damage done from a sprinkler system than there is from the fire. And mandating automatic sprinkler systems anywhere is really real nice in Wisconsin and New York City, but in Wyoming, I'm questioning its validity.
I certainly do. I understand that. I don't know that we can amend all fire suppression out of the code by home rule. We have 2 more shots at that, and we could certainly try it if the council was willing to do that. So,
Your Honor, Kyle, are you talking about residential only, or are you talking about commercial and residential?
Well, residential primarily, because that jacks the price of a dwelling considerably, and we just went to Guns N' Roses about low-income housing, and here we are, just free-for-all, putting in more money somewhere else. So residential, yes, but I'm curious about the validity for commercial also.
so we get that clarified for the public. The amendment that is gone through the planning commission calls for us to eliminate all requirements for fire protection on residential structures. Am I correct about that?
Sprinkler system.
The sprinkler systems
That is correct, and that is correct in my understanding, yes.
in all.
See, last time we had it up to a magic number, $49.95, and anything above that, we needed water protection. And when you start putting that in, then you're gonna go from a 2-inch service line to a 4-inch service line, or whatever it's gonna be required. I mean, goodness sakes.
Household water suppression systems are way different than businesses. And we did last year last time we did this, we amended them all the way out for houses, for residentials. Even, we had the discussion about 5,000. I don't understand why we care more about a 5,000 square foot house than we do a 1,000 square foot house. It doesn't make much sense to me. But,
I mean, we could mandate CO2 and all kinds of simpler devices, but water suppression's expensive.
yeah, real expensive, and there's a few of us that know what that costs. And I would actually, if that was in front of me, I would vote fire suppression in all buildings out of the zoning if we could do that. I don't know if we can.
Your Honor, we can look we can look and bring that back to you, that specific answer back to you about what and how that would work.
That would be nice.
Mike, go ahead.
Just to clarify, there's, just to make sure we're, everything that's going on, so the added note, the added omission of section P2904, which is a addition and significant changes to IRC and IBC this year, is a bulk addition of code for dwelling unit fire suppression systems. And by deleting that dwelling unit code in its entirety, and then coupled on top of the way that section 903.2.8 reads, is amended to read, an automatic sprinkler system installed in accordance with 903.3 shall be provided with exceptions listed below, exceptions being 1 and 2 family dwellings, multi-single family dwellings, and residential R4 occupancies constructed. We're basically listing out all of the different formats in which in residential housing one would term and designate. So we're listing that out, and then we're also listing out the new code which breaks down how that water suppression system needs to be built. So we are adding clarity. We're not having the conversation today about dwellings over 5,000 square feet that was before, because we're omitting both sections of code that have it written in it in one form or another on how to do that. And so we went forward with that with this section of code. We absolutely have the ability as a home rule city under the statute in which we're working with to move this to look at further motivation as to what code city council or any resident for that matter of the city of Riverton would like to present before council. And and we can proceed with those on line item after, after we're done with the bulk of this here. We can look at each one of those individuals, and when tasked, I can put information forward for any of that.
Cool.
So if I understand you correctly, we've taken care of all residential fire suppression requirements in the city with the exemptions that we've put forward today.
Correct. The way that we're amending the code today is we're trying to snag all of the loopholes out of. There's grade above story or story above grade, and there's a lot of different complexities about how they term and how they keep adding it into. There's a section of P2904 which we're omitting in its entirety that actually states that an attic, if above second grade above story, would need fire suppression in it, which, we just, it gets carried away. There are reasons for it. There are very specific reasons for it when you look at townhome structures like the city of San Francisco has, where you're 3.5, 4-story vertical single egress on the ground floor, where you're talking, if you're on the 4th story and you have an issue, you're either jumping out a window or you're going down 4 stories, and it's all about the distance of travel to exit. And that's where the 5,000 square foot come from. A single-story ranch-style structure, 5,000 square foot with 2 egress doors. That's where they're talking about that distance to get outside of the building.
You ever seen a 5,000 square foot house that had 2 doors?
No, most of them have a lot more, and it's all part, and that's where there's a little bit of conjecture to all of this, and I know you and I have had the conversation numerous times, and I'm willing to have, willing to have it with anybody. So moving forward with city protocol right now, we've done what we're doing here, and we have the ability to look at any code, not just fire suppression system, but literally any code in writing, and look at it, bring it to the Board of Appeals, and then bring it to City Council, if so.
So I think what Councilman Larson is suggesting is the elimination of all fire suppression in the city of Riverton. So would you look at that for us and bring that back to us? And if we can't amend that out here, we could at least have a discussion on what we can amend out. So for commercial buildings, I think 5,000 square feet is a building that has over 5,000 square feet has to be suppressed. Is that not correct?
Mr. Paskett's definitely finite on the information as to what needs and doesn't need fire suppression system, and I can have him come up. It's not just a single square footage. It's the type of construction it's used. Go ahead if you want.
Mr. Mayor and Council, what Mr. Miller said is correct. So it's based on the occupancy of the structure, and the square footage comes into it, and the type of hazard that's in that structure. That dictates whether a fire suppression system is required, or if it's not. Or if they can go to compartmentizing and not have to put in a fire suppression system where they break the building up into fire zones. If not, then they can put in the fire suppression system.
And so, Kyle, is that what you're suggesting?
Mm-hmm.
So you can amend this right now, if you choose. We can put an amendment on it and vote on it if you want to try to eliminate all fire suppression.
Ask a question, Your Honor. I think there are some places where fire suppression is probably smart, like in hotels. So to eliminate it entirely may not make a lot of sense, but then you start getting into the minutia of, well, this is allowed and this isn't. So it's kind of cleaner to have a clean slate. But then again, I think that it's important that you do protect people who might not be able to exit a building quickly, like in a hotel or motel or something like that. But yet, you have a big empty building, Councilman Bailey has a very real building like that the chances of it burning or catching on fire are pretty remote. And yet, how many hundreds of thousands of dollars do you spend on fire suppression for something that will never, ever be used, but still has to be maintained to code?
And has X number of exits.
Right.
I mean, where fire suppression is to protect people and property, but first people. So if you've got 9 exits in a distance that anybody can crawl to, and yet we require fire suppression because it's written.
Well, this is probably way out.
Yeah, I'm in the weeds, I
way-
realize.
Way out but in Kentucky, they built a replica of Noah's Ark. And I read the book on what they did. And they were on 800 acres of ground is finally what they did. They went out and bought 800 acres so that they were hoping to get past some of the codes that were residential, city municipal codes. In doing so, they were required to build underneath the structure. They put in a large tank of 50,000 gallons of water. The other problem that came in, and we're doing that again here tonight, is that the ark was so big, it's 300 plus feet long and 80 feet tall, 50 feet tall and 80 feet wide. The wind load was miraculous. And so behind the ark, they built 3 towers out of masonry. And so they could anchor to those masonry towers for the wind load. And there's one in the middle and one on each end. Those miraculously really helped out because they also gave them room for the bathrooms that they needed, because the ark can hold 10,000 people at one visit. The other miraculous thing is the stair structure that they put in could unload 10,000 people in 6 to 8 minutes. They did have to put a pump in that water reserve that would move 1,000 gallons of water a minute to suppress the ark. So safety is really what we're talking about, and that's a really out of the ordinary happening, right? We don't build many wood structures like that anymore. That's all wood structure. And so I think we'd be smart to maybe take a look at buildings that you don't want exempt. That's not a bad idea. We don't have a whole lot of motels being built, but that would be a good suggestion. And you can make an amendment right here to do that. I think it would be smarter to have staff go back through that and see exactly what we would be eliminating and what problems that would cause.
I think that's wiser, to have the staff go back and
I think it also cuts to the problem better. But I think so that staff understands what council is experiencing, we have a whole lot of water suppression that hangs above buildings that never goes off. And worse than that, it has to be checked every year and certified that it's all right to be there. And so we would like, if I'm stating this right, would we like a report back to us on commercial
Yes.
water suppression?
Yeah.
And
Yes, sir.
what we can and cannot do there? Does that make sense, Mike?
Yes, Your Honor, Counsel, absolutely, I can provide that. There is on one, and just to piggyback on the comment that I think it would be prudent to get a staff report. There's a lot of complexities when we start talking about commercial property and we start talking about commercial property values and insurance and all of those things. There's going to be impacts to all of those things to those decisions. So I think that there's a lot of finite information that goes into that detail, and it's and I think it would be prudent to get a staff report on that, and I have the ability to provide that.
Thank you. Just for a side note, that the Ark replica in Kentucky is worth $50 million. Is what it took to make the replica. So I don't know that we'll have that opportunity. Be nice if somebody would come in town and drop that kind of money, but they
We're a little short on wood. We're a little short on wood around here, Your Honor.
Yeah, what would that cost with today's building materials?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So, and the fun thing of that was most of the timber for that came out of Utah.
Yeah.
Out of a forest that had already burned. It was a dead forest.
Your Honor, I got one other.
Mike?
I have a question for Mike, and I know you haven't been on the job too long, but maybe you or Tony, is there any other building code issues that seem to keep perking up that give people heartburn, grief, challenges complying with? You know, overly expensive, I guess, other things like that. And I know we've got a few listed here. I mean, if there's any others that we maybe ought to look at possible ways to
Your Honor.
minimize.
Your Honor, Counsel, that's a great question. There's actually, there's actually two things outside of direct code in ICC that I'm working on right now. The first one is it's not complex in nature by dollar. It's not really complex in nature by request. It's complex in nature by ability. And so we have a multi-million-dollar project going on out at the CWC Equine Center. And if you guys haven't been out there to see how big, it's a really neat project. It's a really, and they're doing a bang-up job out there. Multi-million-dollar project, and we visit out there when we have to do our inspections. It takes us 15 or 20 minutes. They have project managers that are in charge of just getting inspections done, and we're in and out of there, and it's tied up tighter than a bow. And then we will have a new mobile home brought into a mobile home park that is used, is 20 years old, and we will visit and spend more time and have more issues getting that mobile home into compliance with code than we will with anything else. And it's not necessarily the reference in code that's complicating. It's the situation and the lack of, it's not very beneficial for a business that's got 70 projects stacked behind them to stop and go do $100 worth of work for somebody. So it's hard to get contract labor to come out and do a gas pressure test at a trailer, and it's hard to get an electrician to come out and do 15 or 20 minutes worth of work. Because they have 40 jobs and they have them stacked up and they just move one on, you know, and because we're doing a lot of work. We are doing a lot of work in Riverton right now. So that's something that I'm trying to figure out how to improve that situation. It's actually, every single one of them that we get in is a struggle for us to make sure that it gets done right, to make sure that the people, that the folks that are doing it understand what they need to do, because they're usually not contractors, and it's very hard to get a contractor to do that work because there's no capital. There's no profit margin in there for a contractor to do that, minus $100 or $200. And in today's day and age, $100 or $200 in the contract world isn't very much when you're paying insurance and all of that. It's a struggle. So I don't know if it's necessarily a code issue, as more of it's a reflectance issue of how we can improve that situation. That's something that I'm working on. And I'm also working on bringing something in when we're done with ICC and everything. I'll be bringing something in as to how we classify and register contractors. We have the bulk of our contractors that we have in the city do an exceptional job, do exceptional work. And as those contractors that do exceptional work, that do comply with these codes on a daily basis, sometimes it's the thought process is that it's more complicating to comply than it is not to comply. It might be easier to fly under the radar and not submit the permits and not follow all the codes and not get the inspections, because a little slap on the wrist has prototypically been what's happened there in the good contract. You know, the contractors that are following through and doing everything like they're supposed to feel like they're not getting, like that there isn't much benefit to complying with that. So I'm actually looking at the way that we register our contractors in a different way, and have a contractor in good standing, and create a probationary status where we can manipulate and have control, not manipulate in a negative way, but manipulate and have control over what are required of our contractors to do, how we track if they are doing good work or if they're doing out of compliance work or if they're doing work without a permit altogether. And we have the ability to track that and have repercussions for it. Today, we don't. The repercussion today is if you do something illegal, I can give you a citation for it. But if you get caught, you can just come in and pay double the fee. That's what the hit is. It's double the permit. Maybe it's $150 and you walk out the door and you're still the same status as everybody else. So I'm working, those are really the two things I know, two things code-wise that I know of that I'm working on.
So what we have in front of us right here, though, is that we have a motion on the floor with a second for us to accept what we've done with the exemptions currently out of the 2021 International Building Code. And my suggestion, unless somebody wants to put an amendment up, is that we pass these and get those in place. And then, so, in here, that we do this every 3 years and we have 6 months to comply before it goes into law without home rule. So I would like a report back, I would like it back before we vote in 2 weeks again on this on the second reading. If we can take the sprinkler systems out and what buildings we'd like to take them out of. And if we want to leave them in motels, that's a great idea. We can have that discussion with that amendment. So, does that make sense, Mr. Miller?
Yes, Your Honor.
Tony, are we stepping on anybody? Kristen?
We understand, but it'll be at the next council meeting?
Perfect. Is that all right, Kyle?
Yeah.
All right.
Your Honor,
Yes.
before calling the vote, may I please read the ordinance by title only?
No, you cannot. You better. Where did I jump you? Clear back at, we're not there yet, right?
No.
We are there.
Oh, it's not on my agenda, but would you please read the ordinance by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Proposed ordinance number 22-002
Oh,
on
Kristen?
first reading.
Kristen, are we still we're on D, at least my agenda says we're on D,
Yes, Your Honor, the previous page.
so I'd clear back there, I
Just
didn't.
skip me.
Will the city clerk please read ordinance number 22-002 by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Proposed ordinance number 22-002 on first reading, an ordinance amending Title 15, Buildings and Construction Codes to revise Chapter 15.04, Building Construction and Maintenance Codes, Sections 15.04.010, Adoption, Applicability, Filing, and 15.04.040, Local Design Criteria and Loadings of the Riverton Municipal Code, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Excuse me for going past that. Now we're back to the ordinance number 22-002 on first reading. And we have a motion from Councilman Peranto and a second from Councilman Bailey. And we've discussed that, so we're at the vote location, if I'm correct now.
Yes, Your Honor.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Consideration of ordinance number 22-001, third and final reading of disorderly house or business. Would the city clerk please read ordinance number 22-001 by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Proposed ordinance number 22-001 on third and final reading. An ordinance amending Title IX, Public Peace, Morals, and Welfare, Chapter 9.08, Offenses Against Public Peace and Decency, repealing and replacing Section 9.08.140, Disorderly Houses of the Riverton Municipal Code, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. the chair would entertain a motion to adopt ordinance number 22-001 on third and final reading.
So moved.
Second.
Councilwoman Borders has the motion, and Councilwoman Cox has the second. Additional discussion?
Your Honor, I just have, would like the city administrator, if he would just walk us through, or let us know, is the process ready to go to implement this? So once the chief provides the letter, then who follows up to make sure it's done?
So Christie, what we have planned, Tony and I have discussed that, if and when this passes tonight, we will call a collective meeting of all of the landlords in Riverton that have buildings of this size, and we will discuss how that ordinance will affect them, and we'll have the chief go to that meeting with us. And after everybody's informed of how that's going to work, and I did have another gentleman come in that owned 2 more apartments here in Riverton, and he was quite supportive after we talked about what we're doing. And so I think what we need to do is just get that information out to the land owners. And then we will discuss the negative side of that if they don't want to participate and they don't want to comply. The ordinance does read that the fine can be as high as $750. And we can apply that to the renter, and we can apply it to the manager, and we can apply it to the owner. And we also have ability to send a letter out to the lending institution to ask if they would put that in the jacket. All of these large apartment owners tell me that there's a yearly evaluation from their lender, and that letter would go a long ways to have them take care of the exterior, all sorts of things in the building. And so I think we need to get that information out. Tony, do you have anything to add to that?
No, Your Honor. I think that with regard to the process, we've already drafted some of the correspondence, the general, this is a violation. So for process, it's, we don't expect it to be that significant of a change or burden. Most of it is, as the mayor pointed out, a conversation. So we look forward to having those and doing some education.
Okay, thank you.
So is there any other discussion?
Your Honor.
Kyle?
The only thing I'm worried about is 2 such violations within a 30-day period. You know, when I speed, they don't give me a second time notice. They just give me a ticket right then and there.
Well, that's because you're not very kind when they come up to the window. I could teach
Oh,
you.
no, I've been really nice lately.
I could teach you how to fix that. I got picked up just a little while ago, and I got off.
What? Yeah, I know, because you're a nicer guy.
My wife can teach that class. She gets off all the time. So, but what we've got to do, that was originally at 10, and we dropped it to 2. And so the presumption of a problem there, I think the real conversation that we're going to have here is going to be really good with the owners of these complexes, so that they understand how we feel about the police calls. And I think we should, Chief, I know it's going to be extra work, but we ought to go through all of those large apartment buildings and give them specific calls for last year.
Yes, sir.
What their buildings had in calls and what the calls were. And then I think we can look each other in the eye and say, you know, this costs the city a lot of money. And if you're gonna require us to come up to this building 400 times a year, we are gonna get it back in fines.
Yeah.
And so, and I think once we get that conversation done, then it's gonna roll back to the police department. The police need to cite those when they see them and not pull back at all. Pass out the citations. When they get the citations, then I think it becomes administrative again. Tony and I'll go to work and see what we can do. there are gonna be some hangups. I can't tell the judge to fine everybody $750. I would like to,
Well, Your Honor,
yes.
just like this, where we have 745 versus 1,746. This is a prime example of knocking those 400 non-calls down, putting somebody on notice.
Yeah. I think that's exactly what we're talking about, is if you don't inspect a problem, you get what you get. And so just passing out citations and wishing it would go away does not make it get better. And so, I think we put, and that's why I asked the council if we have the stomach to, so let's take it clear to the fact that, an owner doesn't want to listen to us. If all 7 of us sign a letter and send it to the bank, these projects have 50-year notes on them, right? So they all got a note on them. And when the lending institution looks at the letter, and it doesn't just have Rich Guard's signature on it, but it has all 7 of us, it's pretty obvious we got a majority, right? So they're gonna find that the citations are just gonna get worse and worse and more of if they don't get in and help us with the problems that we're having. And so this was recommended to us by our attorney. He thought it was a much better answer to the problem than trying to limit how many doors or square footage or whatever you had in that zoning. And so I honestly do believe it will work just like the intoxicated numbers that we have here.
Okay, all right.
If it doesn't, we can always come back to the same group and say, it's not working, let's do something different.
Okay.
Okay? Have we talked that to death yet? So I don't go across the top of the city clerk. Would the city clerk please conduct a roll call vote?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilman Lindsay Cox.
Aye.
Councilman Mike Bailey.
Aye.
Councilman Dean Pronto.
Yes.
Councilman Kyle Larson.
Yes.
Councilman Carla Borders.
Aye.
Councilman Christy Salisbury.
Yes.
Mayor Richard Guard.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Item number 14 is a bid award for the wastewater treatment plant, sludge building motor control center, the MCC, and the return activated sludge RAS project. Public Works Director's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. The sludge building at the wastewater treatment plant houses the Motor Control Center, or MCC, and that center controls a large majority of the plant's treatment equipment, especially in the area of the sludge building. It also has the main feed for the plant running through that area. Many of the controls and components associated with the MCC are original to the plant, which is back to 1985, and have reached the end of their useful life. This building also supports the return activated sludge process, or RAS process. As denoted in your report, this process is very important because it maintains a healthy amount of microorganisms at the plant to promote appropriate treatment. Pumps associated with the RAS process are no longer able to operate in automatic mode. They're failing and have stopped communicating with our PLC, which is the programmable logic control. I said that just for Dean's reference.
He was the only one that knew what it was.
In essence, this process and these items are very important as we treat the wastewater that's running through the plant, and more importantly, as we return the microorganisms back to the oxidation ditch for future treatment. This has been in the budget for the last couple of years. We included it last year and realized we didn't have a sufficient amount to do the necessary improvements. Therefore, we pulled the project and put it in for this fiscal year. City staff prepared a request for qualification for a project integrator to upgrade the MCC and RAS components. We went this route so that we could have a little bit more leeway in working with an expert on doing a design build component rather than us trying to design it on the front end and then do a bid and build process. This was advertised on January 9th, 2022. Statements of qualification were received on January 26th. 3 firms responded to the RFQ. They included Burns & McDonald, ITC Electrical Technology, and Timberline Electric and Controls. A selection committee of 3 staff members was appointed to review that. That was our mechanic at the plant, the chief operator at the plant, and our city engineer. You'll reference in your packet that the submittals were rated against a number of criteria, and those criteria were rated so that we could find the most qualified integrator for this project. From that review, the selection committee ranked Timberline as the most qualified firm for this project. At this time, we're seeking concurrence from council for that selection. We do have $165,000 in the budget for this project. However, we're not seeking for a contract to be approved at this time because we have not yet determined the fee and the scope of work. That will come at a later time. After we give the notice of award to Timberline, we'll go into negotiation and then come back to you with that contract for approval. So at this time, city staff does recommend that the city council approves the selection of Timberline Electric as the project integrator for the MCC and RAS upgrade, and then direct staff to negotiate a contract. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to award the bid to Timberline Electric and Control Corporation as a project integrator for the motor control center for the MCC and the return activated sludge RAC upgrade of to direct staff to negotiate a contract.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Paranto has the motion. Councilman Bailey has the second. Any further discussion?
Your Honor.
Yes.
So Kyle, is this just the bid to design this project? Or is this the actual project?
So, Your Honor, really this is an award of the consultant to do what is basically a design build. We're calling it an integrator. And that's most comparable to a design build contract where they will help us design the improvement and then also install it. So now that this entity will have been selected and concurred with the city council, we'll go back, finalize the scope of work, which we've advertised, and come up with an appropriate fee and bring that back to you for a contract approval.
So then we'll see it again for an approval of a contract for X dollars, and then we're also gonna see it again for an approval of the expenditure of X dollars that they say it's gonna cost to perform the actual project?
Your Honor, you will, and Councilman, you'll only see it once. That contract will cover both of those.
Okay.
You'll then be able to track it through the finance committee on how those invoices
Okay.
are coming in.
Can't take any out of the mayor's budget.
We won't.
Okay.
Because he didn't get one.
Because we don't have much in that budget. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Edge Committee recommendation for special event fee. City Administrator's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mayor and Council, on January 20th of 2022, the Edge Committee did meet and had a discussion about the development of a smaller funding pot with using those same dollars in order to fund events. As you know, there are a couple standards that have to be in place. So one of 2 standards have to be met for council to award funding. One of those under that ballot language is it creates jobs. So give money, create jobs. The other one is it creates an influx of money into the community. Our reading of it at this point says that, so if, take any youth activity, major, whether it be a swim meet, a baseball tournament, or anything like that gets put on. We have a very large soccer. I'll use the soccer one because it's an easy example. They bring in, Your Honor, I think 100 families. Each family, you're looking at about 3 people, so there's 300 people, 300 families. Those are hotel rooms. That's gas, that's food, that's groceries, that's incidentals, and you can go on here, and money that is spent in the community. Because of that, we believe that those types of events would qualify for funding if we wanted to fund those on some level. The committee recommended setting aside 4% of the EDGE monies. That would total over a 2-year period to about $48,000. So about $24,000 a year if our estimate holds. Our total estimate is $1.2 million, or $600,000 a year. They recommend the 4%, and then if council is agreeable to that and would like that done, then we'll go back actually later this week and start working through the standards, how that would look. Why this is different than the way you usually handle your EDGE awards is those are big projects. The hospital is $400, so $880,000. Gafari was $80. College, CWC Equine Fitness Center was $100,000. Those were all individual and very unique. What we would do with this case is develop an agreement that is more boilerplate and that covers certain, we'll fund these certain dollars on maybe a reimbursement basis. We can work through all of that. And then council could say, we'll fund a maximum of whatever we have in the pot, the $2,000. I'm just throwing numbers, but up to $2,000, half of it up to $2,000 or up to $2,000 for these expenses. And then that's just built into the contract. It's easy and it's quicker. The reason that quicker matters in this case is these events a lot of the time start doing fundraising a month and a half, 2 months beforehand. Not all of them. Some of them come 6 months. But if they come a month and a half or a month in advance, we need the ability to pivot quicker than, all right, let's get the EDGE committee together and do a presentation and now bring that to council. And council, do you want an agreement? We wanted to expedite that if that's council's choice. So I've kind of gone relatively quickly to try to explain something that we're determining what we can do. Unlike the other agreements, we would probably bring these directly to council. So you would, if you set aside money and then the committee set up some parameters and council was agreeable to that, then if soccer or baseball or something, they would probably, in order to keep that moving, most likely just come directly to council unless council would like to do something different. We can do it a lot of ways and we can figure it out. With that being said, it is recommended that council sets aside, in this case, 4% of those monies in order to fund those types of activities. We'd be happy to answer any questions. I know that's been pretty quick, and we are still working on the details with the EDGE committee if council wants to move forward this way. As a quick point, not approving this doesn't mean that they can't come and ask for money at all. We already have a smaller application for those types of events. However, it would mean that they would go the traditional route, which is they would go to EDGE committee. EDGE committee would make apply, go to the EDGE committee. EDGE committee would send it to council. Council would say, do an agreement. So this proposal in this manner is just to expedite those types of applications. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilman Paranto.
Tony, are these like grants, or can you explain the beginning part of that? Maybe I'm just kind of coming up slowly, but.
Sure.
So an organization would come to the EDGE committee to request funding for whatever their event is? Is that what's happening now?
Your Honor, they currently, they could come and ask for that right now as it exists. They can, we have a lot of applications for a lot of different things. Some of the phone calls I get on, can I apply for this, or somewhat, they run the gambit. So they can do that now. But this would actually, if council is interested in setting aside these monies, it would exist as its own pot. So if they want to do, for instance, advertising or pay for refs, pay for referees, or pay for umpires, or however those costs that help them put that tournament on, they could apply for up to a certain amount of money that would probably come into staff, and we would bring it directly to council and say, do you want to fund these? And if so, then we would fund them with an agreement that's going to be largely boilerplate. And then they would be reimbursed for those services once they show us that they've paid for them and they give us the receipts essentially.
So it's similar to what the rec board does in essence, but a little bit different, right? Because organizations can come to the rec board and request funding for whatever event, but the rec board can't pay for salaries and referees, things of that nature. So this would be a different grant that organizations could apply to. Not, I say grant, but just another funding source, right?
Your Honor, yes, that's correct. One of the important parts of why we're bringing it forward at this point is we do have to make sure that we can pay for everything that is going to be listed that can be paid for, is that we can list that. So we haven't asked and gone and worked with our legal staff to determine what we can and can't do. We know we can do a number of things. We're sure of that. But we don't know. Maybe they're going to say, you can't pay for salaries. Maybe that happens. And if that's the case, we admit it. But we would still have the opportunity. Or maybe they say you can do advertising but not staff or something like that. But they ultimately would give you the option.
Great.
So I think in clarification, what would happen now, and it's kind of like the rec board, you do that once a year. Right? So if I want to get some beautification, I have to come to your first of the year meeting and ask for that money. So the snow, the motocross activities out on Boyson, if they needed some money to do advertising, they could come in and say, we would like to apply for $5,000 of that money. I think it should go through staff to start with, and we could put some parameters in that. But I do like the idea that it gets to council, so council can say, yeah, that's a good idea, or that's not a good idea. We're not gonna give you $5,000, it's, how's the fund doing? And so, if baseball attacks us $48,000, we could lose it all in a moment, right?
Right.
But what the idea is try to help all of these activities. So what soccer really does do is it'll bring 70-plus teams to town for a big tournament. And so that's mom and dad and the other siblings, and the motels are booked, and the gas stations and the restaurants, and we want to encourage that. And so if we could be seen as being helpful to those organizations of bringing additional dollars for them to use, sometimes these tournaments get set up pretty fast. And so it would eliminate the need to take it back through the Edge Committee, right? We'd fast track that entire process, as long as it stayed in an amount of money that was below this $48,000. And then council would still get a shot to look at it and say, that's a good idea, and that, or not. And it would be a majority vote to fund it.
Your Honor.
Yes.
So in order to fast track it, do we have to say we're setting that money aside? So if someone came in and asked for the money for a bigger project, is that not available to them? Well, I know that it's a great idea. I've hosted tournaments. I know sometimes you're like, okay, how are we going to pay for this part of it? But is it going to make it less likely that you can fund a bigger project because you're holding that back? I mean, I like the fast track, but do we have to hold the money so that someone else can't use it? Because it's not as likely that they're all going to come and ask us to pay for the tournaments, but they are going to come and ask for bigger things. I know, like hockey wants their refrigeration system, and that's a lot of money. Are they not going to get it because we're reserving this money over here, or how's that going to work?
So I think the answer to that, those big projects for the hockey, they can, every time, so let's be positive. In 2 years, the hospital they don't need any more money.
Mm-hmm.
And we as a group are gonna have to find some place to spend that size of money. It's $440,000 a year. So we really could fund an ice floor or a portion of an ice floor, right? So, but I think those need to go through the Edge Committee. That's why we have an Edge Committee. And those big asks that are, so we have some action on a soccer complex. That's a long-term big conversation, and that should be put together and come to Edge, and Edge should be able to run that through and have long discussions on what that facility is going to look like. But what we're really talking about right now is just like you're saying, that baseball needs some help advertising or maybe even some sod. The field isn't what it should be. And we've brought the whole state here and we don't want them playing on dirt. And so we could apply to, I don't know that $48,000 isn't a lot of money. And I think you got to be really kind of cautious that baseball doesn't get more than, and I think that is back on Tony and staff and then back on us, that we don't just say, you know, baseball gets $39,000 and nobody gets anything else.
Well, and I understand that they would go through the same process. I'm just wondering, is that money held in place, or is it still available for if someone comes in for $28,000 and we're like, well, we have it, but we're going to hold it over here?
And so what Tony's trying to explain to us all and keep us in line is that we can't over obligate. So he'll keep a running tally of what we have obligated. He does that really well. And he will be able to say, he also tracks that tax really well, right? So we see that as it comes through, and we can't over obligate it. We can't spend it until we have it. So this isn't like the hospital. The argument to the hospital was, well, we can't agree to do this until we have the money in hand. And we got attorneys to tell us that we could. And so we did obligate that money. But this one, and he would like a fixed number so he can plug that into the formula, that $48,000 is set aside. And very possibly you could come up against a hard spot where you didn't have the money to fund something else that was bigger because it was there. And I think there again, the council could say we're not going to be able to hold this 48,000 because we want to commit it to the CWC riding arena. And I think we would have that latitude, would we not, Tony?
Yes, Your Honor, that was the point I was going to make. It's not really, it's to the mayor's point, the likelihood of the larger projects eating the smaller amount is far more than the smaller amount stopping a big project, because of exactly what the mayor said. You're saying we're gonna set aside this money. And then if a group comes, you have a very short time frame. It's not like the hospital where we're waiting to have it built. They're gonna show up in a month and a half later, they're gonna be putting on. So 2,000 goes here, 2,000 goes here, 2,000 goes here. We have 42,000, and all of a sudden something comes forward that needs it. Council can absolutely say, okay, we're not going to apply any more of this because you have to do the award. We are gonna take that other $40,000 or $42,000. We're gonna put it back in to help fund this project over here. So you have that leniency. It's not going to stop a big project.
Okay.
Your Honor, and I would foresee that we set some kind of limit, $2,000 or $3,000, so that they're not gonna come to us and say, I wanna get $40,000 over the next 2 years. This is a short-term, we're gonna pull off a tournament and we need a little help here kind of a deal. And like you said, I mean, if we've only spent half of it and we get a need for it somewhere else, city council has the authority to say we're gonna use that half for something else, so.
If the mayor.
Your Honor.
Oh,
I think we have a lot of people in town that are volunteering to do some really exciting activities, not just the sports, but some festivals in town and different things to draw people. And I think this is a great idea to do that. And I'd be a little bit cautious of limiting, making a dollar amount, because different events require different things. And it's hard when a lot of times it's the same people doing the work and volunteering, and it's hard for them to come up with fundraising and all of that on top of actually organizing it. And so I think as a council, we can decide if something's coming that's 20,000 out of it, we can say, well, we do 8 or we do 3 or whatever. But I think it's really important to encourage people to put themselves out there, to volunteer, to put these activities on.
I think we agree with that. I think the whole thing that we had to be careful of is we don't end up with a redheaded stepchild like hockey that feels like they don't ever get any attention. And that can certainly happen. And that's why I would like it to come back through council, so council can, council is elected, and if you don't like that, you can change your vote, right? If somebody thinks we're spending too much money on baseball, that's why they make a voting booth. So, but I do think it needs to come through council, and I do think we need to be careful that we don't over-favor one activity over the next. And I think you're smart to point out that these aren't all athletic-oriented activities, because we're not all, and I think we should press that. All of those others, quilters and those people that need help, and they bring a lot of people to town, and lots of times we overlook their input. So I think that's a good point to put out there. This is kind of a off the wall ask, I think. I think it's already thinking out of the box a little bit, and I don't think any of the other communities in Fremont County are even at this stage to think of this. But we do have a lot of volunteers that are doing their very best to push activities forward. So, is that as much information as we need to pass out?
Your Honor, I believe it's pretty clear.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to allocate 4% of the half-cent Economic Development Fund for the events and directed by staff to prepare appropriate agreements and processes.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Councilman Larson has the motion, and Councilman Peranto has the second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion passes. Sunset Park Consultant Selection, Public Works Director's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm happy to present to the council our selection committee's recommendation for the Sunset Park project. As you know, Sunset Park has been in the community for about 50-plus years. It includes a total acreage of about 8.5 acres. And there's existing playground equipment on a sand surface of approximately 5,000 square feet. This equipment includes a swing set, a slide, and a geodesic climbing dome. Community members have requested improvements to this playground equipment for several years, but it was also denoted as a 3 to 5 year goal in the Parks Master Plan completed by the Parks Committee that was formed in 2018 and 2019. You as a council allocated $70,000 for the fiscal year 2022 budget for a new modern playground at Sunset Park. Staff began advertising on January 23rd for statements of qualification from qualified firms to perform really two functions. The first is the selection of a new system, and then the second is to install that system. As included in your packet, there were several items that we were looking for in this advertisement. I'll highlight just a few of them. The play system should accommodate age ranges of 5 to 12 years old, have a child capacity of 40 to 80 children, be appropriate for the temperatures and weather experienced in our area, meet industry guidelines, and there's a number of acronyms included in your packet, but those are important as it shows certifications that we want on our playground to ensure that the children that play on it are safe and that the equipment is warranted. And then again, the firm must oversee the installation of the equipment and be certified and competent to do so. Submittals of qualification were received on February 8th. 5 firms responded. They included A to Z Recreation, Playground, Garrett Parks and Play, Great Western Recreation, and Star Playground. A selection committee of 3 staff members, including myself, the park supervisor, and our fleet sanitation supervisor, who was previously in our parks department, comprised that committee, and we rated them, the proposals, against a number of criteria that is again included in your packet. From that exercise, each committee member individually rated and ranked the proposals, and then as a team, we got together and then created a team ranking. From those efforts, Garrett Parks and Play was selected as the most qualified firm to assist in the selection of new playground equipment and in its installation. Costs related to the playground will come out of the general fund. Again, we have $70,000 to go towards this project. Fees have not been established or finalized, and similar to the MCC project, with your concurrence with the selection of Garrett Parks and Play, we will then go towards them and finalize a contract and then come back to you. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to select the Garrett Parks and Play for the Sunset Playground project and direct staff to negotiate a contract.
So moved.
So moved.
Councilwoman Cox has the motion and Councilwoman Salisbury has the second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay.
Aye.
Motion passes. Fiscal health report, financial director's report. Mia, if you're going to take a second to get set up, can we?
Pardon me?
Could we take a break for 5 minutes?
Of course.
We'll resume in 5 minutes. the fiscal health report, and Mia Harris, our
Thank you, Your
financial
Honor.
director, will take us from there. Thanks.
I realize I'm the only thing standing between you and Council Roundtable and the end of this meeting tonight, so I'll try to be thorough, but somewhat quick. First of all, I wanted to point out in your packets that the dates reflected for this report were October to December, and that should actually be from July of 2021 through December of 21. So it's a compilation of our fiscal year information on there. For purposes of our audience, I did want to remind you that the governing body approved a final fiscal year budget of $22,636,000 and some change. That budget is comprised of 11 different funds, including 1 governmental, 5 enterprise, and 5 fiduciary funds. For purposes of tonight's exercise, I'm going to cover the governmental and the enterprise funds and their current status. Of those funds also, we approved $7,234,000 in capital projects as well. So I'll start with the condition of the general fund through December 31st of this year. The general fund makes up about 37% of our fiscal year budget, and the total budget of the general fund was $8.3 million. The amounts referenced on the slide include both operational and capital revenues and expenditures, as well as any budget transfers. And at the close of the quarter, revenues in the general fund exceeded expenditures by $143,525. Last year's variance for this same period was $551,410. So we're down a little bit this year from where we were last year. But you're going to see, as I proceed through this report, that we've had some big fluctuations in our cash. I'll go through some of that with you. Really, when we do these reports, it's at one point in time, and that can change in a matter of 1 week. So I wouldn't panic too much when we see these large fluctuations in numbers. I did conduct an analysis of the budget today, actually, and the general fund now reflects a surplus of $696,039. So you can see we went from $125,000 to $696,000 in a matter of 6 weeks. This is due in part to the receipt of the $671,000 in direct distribution that we received in January. Some revenues to note: sales and use tax, of course. I know City Administrator Tolstad keeps you apprised on that on a monthly basis, and our receipts exceed our annual projections by $270,388 at this time. And then also our building and encroachment permits. Our Community Development Department has done a wonderful job, and they exceed annual projections by 10%, which is $9,748. Not a huge amount of money, but it's certainly worth reporting that they've done a wonderful job, and it just goes to show the economic development in our community is paying off for our city as well. Some of the expenditures to note: we do pay our annual expenses, including property and liability insurance and software support fees in the first quarter. So normally we see that we're running a little bit high in expenditures, and then that tapers off throughout the year, and we tend to balance out. Only $193,689 of the capital outlay budget has been spent. We do have a large capital outlay budget in the general fund. And we expect to spend more down this spring as it approaches. We do have the North Federal Decorative Light Project that will be coming up this spring, and that's a little over $537,000, so that will impact our general fund a little bit. Also, our parks improvements, which we spoke about this evening, and then we've got some IT upgrades budgeted that have not been spent as well. Moving on to the airport fund. The airport fund closed the second quarter with our expenditures exceeding our revenues, $1,650. Comparatively, this fund reflected a deficit balance of $234,000 for this same period last year. An analysis of the airport fund today reflects that we now have a surplus of $320,687. So again, there's a huge fluctuation there. A large surplus reflected in the miscellaneous revenue line item, and you'll see that on your budget report. This is primarily a result of a sale of property on Airport Hill. And then I also wanted to remind you that 100% of the airport operations budget is funded through CARES grant. So we definitely will see our airport close with a surplus balance this year. It's a matter of timing of our grant reimbursements versus our spending, but we're in really good shape with the airport right now as well. Also wanted to point out that the city staff did budget a transfer of $75,000 in cash to help offset costs for our capital projects. And it's a little early now, but I highly doubt that we're going to have to do that $75,000 transfer at the end of the year also. But stay tuned. The next fund that I'll report on is the water fund, and our water fund has a budget slightly in excess of $3.5 million. We did budget that we were going to transfer $772,000 from cash to complete our capital projects. That was a big budget transfer. During the second quarter of fiscal year 22, the closing balance in the water fund was a negative $62,177. So we have not approached our $772,000 yet. Last year, the fund position for this same period was $382,313. And we'll remember that we were working the Riverton water supply project last year, so we saw a bigger deficit during that period. Moving on to the wastewater fund, our wastewater fund budget is $2.8 million. Our revenues exceeded our expenditures in the wastewater fund by $62,093. Last year, the second quarter closing balance was $293,015, so we're a little lower. And we do want to keep in mind that we've got some big improvements going on at our wastewater treatment plant this year. And this year's capital budget contains, again, over $600,000 in expenses for upgrades to the aging wastewater plant. The sanitation budget is projected at $2.7 million. The city budgeted for the purchase of a sanitation truck and a front-end loader for the sanitation fund. The loader arrived in December, so those costs are calculated into this report that you'll see. And then the sanitation truck was just delivered in February. Sanitation trucks, you just approved one tonight, and it was about $309,000. So those trucks are pricey, but we need to keep our garbage service running. The fund closed with a deficit of $71,107. And last year's quarter two closed at $470,969. So again, we're in a deficit at this point. We did budget that we were going to transfer $457,000 in our cash for these capital projects or purchases. So I did want to point out, it's looking like two of our three enterprise funds, water, sewer, and sanitation, are operating at a deficit. The staff is going to bring forward a resolution to increase our utility rates as based on the recommendation of our utility rate analyst a few years ago. So we will be presenting that in the near future, and it would be a 3% increase across the board for all three of those funds. Okay, moving on to the Air Service Fund. The Air Service Fund has been primarily funded by the City of Riverton, the City of Lander, and then other local entities. With the passing of the 0.5% economic development tax, Air Service is now funded through these means. At the close of the second quarter, the Air Service Fund budget reflects a deficit balance of $95,278, but not to panic. There is also $115,797 that's sitting in the 0.5% economic development fund for Air Service, so we'll just need to transfer that over. And we also had a cash surplus in the Air Service Fund last year, so there is some cash in there as well. Okay, and then on behalf of the Finance Department, I just wanted to extend our thanks to each of you for your support throughout the budget year. We always appreciate your feedback and your diligence in helping us monitor our budgets. And I also wanted to thank the department heads and the city staff, supervisors as well, and keeping such a very close eye on their budget and watching their money very closely. And I'd stand for any questions. Okay.
Great report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So let's go on to council committee reports. Christy, do you want to start us off?
Sure. I have not attended any meetings since the last council meeting.
Okay.
But I do want to thank Kyle Butterfield for all his work at Sunset Park. Since I live across the street, I'm excited to go play on the playground.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to have him come. I want to live across the street from a park one of these days. Maybe get Kyle to come look at one. Any other things you've got, Christy?
No, that's all.
Okay. Carla, would you like to go next?
Sure, Your Honor. I haven't attended any meetings, but I do want to remind everybody about the Rendezvous Games this weekend. I believe the deadline is tomorrow, and they're still looking for more teams. So if you're interested, please call Tony at the city, and he'll get you set up. That's all I've got, Your Honor.
Thank you. So, Lindsay, could you go next, please?
Okay. I attended the rec board meeting last week, and we went over the applications that were submitted for the money, and that was very, I really enjoyed it because I hadn't done that process yet, so it was interesting to see what it was like on that side of it, because I've asked for money before, but it's interesting to hear the discussion behind it. I also met with the Senior Endowment Board yesterday, and things are going well there. They've got some projects that they need looked after, but I think we've got it in order, so that's good. And other than that, I haven't been to any other meetings.
Thank you. One of you are going to tell us how much we spent, right? Dean's going to do that. Okay, thank you. Mike?
I did attend the Force Committee meeting Monday morning, and again, we're finalizing the projects for this coming year. They'll be working on Sunset, and then they've got some pavement improvement projects for College View and Major that they're going to work on, and there's a few others probably in the works, depending on how the bids come in and that kind of stuff. We're still in the design phase for Davis Lane. It's got some very interesting hydrology issues that we're having to deal with, and so that continues to just develop as we go along every time. It's one of those, you turn over a rock and find 6 new things that are gonna give us grief. So looks like that project's probably still gonna be in the design phase, because I don't think we can get it designed and completed this year, so it'll probably get pushed off to next year. But again, that committee's very good at being very frugal with the taxpayers' money. And again, that fund generates quite a bit of money per year, which again is getting spent on projects in and around the city of Riverton. And so if people have issues with the streets in their area, I would encourage them to bring those forward to the committee. And they keep an ongoing list of, suggested projects, and then every year they rate those and try to do the ones that are, most productive and cover as much, different street and areas as possible to be repaired, so.
Thanks, Mike. Dean?
Hi, Your Honor, thank you. On the 7th of this month, we had the Fremont County School District Rec Board meeting. As Councilman Cox mentioned, it is an interesting process that you go through. And this year we had $258,798.24 in requests. And so far, we've accommodated $202,850.44. So that's a tremendous amount of money going to various organizations in Fremont County, everything from Riverton Ambassadors to After Prom to our rec, ice hockey, Kiwanis, Little League. I mean, a lot of different organizations that really, you really see that benefit to our kids and our community. We also have 2 beautification grants that we've given, totaling $13,853. And we're working on various park improvements as well, just to help memorialize various people that have been in our community.
Okay.
But we also have a couple of other larger grants, like to Boys and Girls Club that weren't actually, we've set aside the money, but there was a $10,000 grant, $10,000 grant for them, but they had to just kind of rework some things. So my number didn't really reflect that. So there is about another $20,000 to $25,000 that will be allocated as well.
Who got the beautification?
We had a beautification grant that went to Riverton Raiders Legion Baseball.
Oh, good.
And we also had one for the Riverton Junior Football League.
Good, both on that.
And both of those were almost $7,000 apiece.
Fabulous.
And this is real money that goes right back into our community, and one of the items that we look at is the impact on our community, how many kids it serves, what that dollar amount can actually do and serve the largest number of people. And it's really pretty phenomenal. I mean, you kind of feel like Santa Claus in a way, but you kind of can't get that way. You can't think that way, but I mean, you're really giving away real money that helps our community. And $200,000 is a lot of money for these organizations. I mean, when you look at how much fundraising they do, for instance, Riverton Swim Club, we give them every year, well, in the last couple of years, roughly $6,000, but a big chunk of that money goes towards scholarships for the kids that can't otherwise afford to pay the dues and so forth for the pool. So it's really good work. I'm happy to be a part of that.
It is a fun board to be on. I appreciate both of you working on that. Kyle?
I haven't attended any meetings, Your Honor, because they're scheduled at the latter part of the month, but what I wanted to comment about was the worthiness of these small events and bringing people to Riverton. And you know, the only way you can get an attraction in Riverton is be there. And these small events that we have, the soccer, baseball, wrestling right now, those events bring in people, and those people see the community that we live in. And they shop here, and they see what's available here. And that helps. That's a multiplier. Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle. Tony?
Thank you, Your Honor. Speaking of money into the community, we will be beginning our contract. We will be beginning, it's going to take me a minute, our contracts for services advertisement. We know that's kind of signaling, hey, guess what? Budget's about to start. I know everybody really looks forward to that time frame and all of those meetings. So, do you remember the amount we awarded last year? I don't, so I was hoping somebody else did. But every year, the council, through our budget, does award money to for community service contracts. Similar, but not the same, like a lot of the different funding. So if you'll remember last year, COVID was what it was, and we decided to, for everybody's sake, just to do it digitally. And it was with relatively decent success. However, we're going to be moving back to in-person this year. So you'll have presentations again and be able to hear and ask questions and interact. It's a much better process. It's a lot easier on everybody, I think. So we're looking forward to that. So that's going to be advertising. I believe the due date for those applications are April 1st. If there are questions, they're welcome to call City Hall, talk to myself, talk to Mia. We can all get you to the right places. So we look forward to that process this year being a little different, but a little more traditional. The mayor did mention that we'll be preparing a meeting with some of the facilities that could be affected by the disorderly house ordinance. That was tentatively scheduled for March 3rd, and when I looked, it was the council chambers is already taken up at that time. So we will be advertising for that. We'll put it on our Facebook page. We'll work to get a good time that can work for everyone. But that's going to be coming up in a couple weeks. We do need a little bit of lead time to let people know and try to coordinate that appropriately. It'll probably be about 5:30 in the evening. We don't want to keep people here too late, and we won't get attendance. Edge is this Thursday evening at 6 p.m. here in the bullpen. Anybody is welcome to attend, of course. The big topic of conversation will definitely be the small event funding. That's going to be what we're working on during that meeting for the most part. Rendezvous games is this weekend, as was denoted. We are still looking for teams. We only have a couple. We really want to make these events a good event. It's a city-sponsored event. We've already got the insurance. We've worked through all that. So we do need teams. You can give myself a call. You can call Tisha. Anybody at City Hall. We'll get you to the right place. It's this coming weekend, and we'd be happy to have anybody wants to field a team. It's a lot of fun. It's not just physical. There's some mental stuff, there's some there's an eating contest, there's a lot of good fun. And our community engagement committee does a really good job and works through that, so we appreciate it. The mayor and I will be gone to Wham next week. We have worked with our representatives, the city of Cody and theirs. There's that electrical bill with regard to training on electrical inspectors. We had this big conversation during that adoption. We're working through that process, trying every avenue that we can, and that bill has been introduced. So we're pleased that even though it's a budget session, that we have something that's getting introduced and that it might do some really good things for us. With that same, I sit on legislative leadership. We now meet every Thursday. If there are any questions about legislative items, please let me know. We'll do our best to get you that information as quickly as possible. RECDA is next Wednesday at 7 a.m. And City Hall will be closed on Monday in observance of President's Day. Your Honor, I have nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you. I got a real treat. During the holiday season, the owner of Pertec left the United States, and they told him he couldn't get back in without a letter. He needed some help, and so Tony was kind enough to pen that letter, and I was kind enough to sign it, and they let him back in. And so he bumped into me and said, "Would you like a tour of his facility?" And I've been through that facility once before, but they have almost 60 employees up there, and it was an hour and a half long tour, and I was really impressed with what happens there, and the equipment that's there, and they have a machine called a pick and play, and it actually picks all of these transistors, little teeny items that you can hardly pick up with your fingers, and puts them on circuit boards, and then it's automated to solder those together, and so I was just and you know, they kind of wanted to know if I knew anything about that facility, and I've been here long enough that I knew too much about it, and I could give them some history on it, and so it was kind of fun. But that building has come in and out of service, and it is right now a large employer for Riverton, Wyoming. We really do appreciate what they do. I did get the opportunity to be summoned by the residents of Davis Lane to go down and look at the options that they want to have done on Davis Lane, and I did also attend with Mike the force meeting that dealt with Davis Lane. It is going to be a difficult thing to work with, but I think we have a fairly good direction on that. I also got to attend the ambassadors meeting, and that is a meeting that takes place, and we get a lot of things done in that meeting. It's mostly to help it isn't to put events on, it's to help people that want to put events on be more successful with their events. And so if you would encourage people to come to those and get their information. We're fortunate to have Carol here tonight, and Carol's a big part of that, and she is kind of the network connection, I would tell you, and she does all of the hard work there, and so it's been a real positive to have that calendar out there and that information available. That same evening, I attended the Board of Appeals, and I appreciate what Mike Miller's doing with the Board of Appeals and all the hard work he's putting in there, and the work that they sent to us tonight, I appreciate. I also got to attend staff meeting with the staff, and once again, I'd like to tell you that our staff is exceptional, and they do a really good job of staying on top of the work that's at hand. So with all of that, I would like it if with the rendezvous games got to come off really well, and I would encourage all those that would be interested to hurry and call in so we can get that online and going. I know that there's lots of folks that would help pay the entry fees for that. And so give City Hall a call and we'll see if we can get you a team put together. Other than that, seems like there's one other thing. There's this eating event that's happening down at City Hall every once in a while that Trish is putting together. And it looks really good on the emails. And maybe the rest of us ought to start attending. It sounds pretty tasty, doesn't it? So I appreciate you doing that and building that team morale is a good idea. So,
We have an eating team?
well,
Basically, yeah.
something.
I think I'm qualified.
You think?
Yeah.
Actually, it's once a month you put a luncheon together with staff, don't you? You're trying to?
Celebrate the monthly birthdays, so we kind of just gather all the teams together and celebrate everybody that works for City Hall and all of our teams, whether it's the wastewater treatment plant, the airport, or where they might work or call their office. They can come down and all contribute, and it's kind of everybody brings a little something. You just can't duplicate those kind of sandwiches, salads, or Super Bowl snacks.
We appreciate what you do. Thank you very much. Staff have anything to add?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Media, need anything? You guys got your fingers aren't sore? You guys, anybody else got anything to add?
Good.
Then we stand adjourned at 9 o'clock.